May I please have your full and undivided attention? It is time for the Paranormal Rundown. Hello, this is Cedric Dankworth Smythe. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all fans of the paranormal, the supernatural, the unusual, the entertaining, the terrifying, the... How does he talk like that? Okay, as you may be able to tell, this is not Cedric Dankworth Smythe. This is just David. Unfortunately, Cedric has the flu, and Avalon is at a sleepover with her cousin Annabelle, so you're stuck with me. So here we go. If you're not familiar with the Paranormal Rundown, we have a list of over 2,700 paranormal topics to discuss. Vic created a spreadsheet that randomly pulls 6 topics from the list. We choose one to talk about, then wander through the many tangents that come to mind until we're ready for a new topic and start all over again. Tonight we have a wonderful guest with us, Tracie Bush from the In the Dark, All Things Supernatural podcast, so we really hope you enjoy the show. Now I'm going to go hide from Cedric. He takes these intros very seriously, and I am sure he will find this one wanting. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Paranormal Rundown. This is Season 2, Episode 3, and we're down a man. Unfortunately, Father Mike is not feeling well this evening and is not going to be able to join us, and so prayers for him. But we have here with us Vic Hermanson, J.J. Johnson, and Deacon Josh Birdsong. And we have a great guest tonight, which is Tracie Bush from the In the Dark, All Things Paranormal podcast. Welcome, Tracie.
Oh, thank you.
So, Tracie, before we get going choosing topics, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name's Tracie Bush. I am the host of the In the Dark, All Things Supernatural podcast. I've been doing it for, I'd say, possibly 3 years now. I've gotten into this type of podcasting due to my life, just so many encounters with demonic entities and cryptids, ETs, just a lot of things growing up in a haunted house. And it's led me into doing this, and I never thought I would be doing it, but I ended up here. I've got, I'm a mother, grandmother, business owner, devout Christian, and I'm here for some really good talking tonight.
Well, we had a guest who called it Paranormal Dork Talk. And she said she could do that all day long. Okay, well, I'm just going to jump right in and bring up 6 of our topics. And so, let's see. I'm going to hit the F9 key and see what comes up.
I feel like I'm on a game show.
You are on a game show. We used to have like one of those wheels with little pins that make a
tick,
tick, tick, tick, tick, tick.
This is awesome.
Yeah, you're on the worst kind of game show.
No
no prizes and a lot of talking.
I know, Vic. Where's our prizes for all this? Come on.
Knowledge.
That is true. It's amazing what you learn from people. You think you know so much, and you talk to other people, and they will bring up topics that you've never heard of, and it's just like, wow, I feel really stupid right now.
Well, it's what I love about the show. We always learn something, and
Oh, yeah.
something new about something we already knew.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Something interesting, a different interesting angle.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Yeah, it is
Okay,
great.
I have a list in front of me of 6 topics. First topic, is, does Satan, as a being, perceive himself to be capable of defeating, dominating, or displacing God? Topic 2 is earth energy. Topic 3 is ex cathedra communication. The whole idea of papal infallibility. Topic 4 is the subtle but sinister shift in reality. The reason I put that in there is because I've never had conventional nightmares. I've never had Godzilla trying to stomp me. I've never had a Bigfoot trying to eat me. I've never had anything like that. All my nightmares are subtle little changes in reality where everybody else in the room knows something I don't, or things fall too slowly. There's some little tiny thing. Topic 5 is Aristotelian thought. And topic 6 is any direct ghost encounters in the group.
Oh, that's a good one. That's the entertaining stuff right there.
So, I'm not seeing any faces just lighting up immediately.
Well, the last
I'm waiting anxiously to hear what Tracie goes for.
I'm choosing the two that piqued my interest were the first one and the last one.
Okay.
So
either one of those okay with you?
So, yeah. I mean,
we got to do both.
As far as you're asking me,
got to do both. Okay. Well, I'd really like to do the first one.
I do too.
Yeah.
But you knew that already.
Yeah.
That's funny. We all picked the number one spot. Okay.
Well, who wants to get us started on that?
Vic, why don't you?
Yeah, okay. Vic, you do it.
You had the most interest in it.
Okay, one of the things that I always find interesting is that when I'm talking to people who are deep into these issues, it's not uncommon for me to say something like, I wonder if Satan or Lucifer, and then people will jump on me and they'll say, no, these are two separate beings. One is simply the Jewish idea of the accuser. One of them is, the people have very specific ideas about what these names mean.
Like JJ.
I could go into hours of detail.
Hours and hours of this.
But honestly, I will jump. I'm not trying to cut you off.
You cut me off all you want.
I would jump on that because when I was growing up, I would hear someone mention, say, Baalzebub in conjunction, and they really meant the devil. And that would bug the ever-living crap out of me until I actually started studying all this. And I went, well, actually, Baalzebub was a candidate to be the devil, along with a ton of others in the mishmash. So actually, they're more correct out of their ignorance than what they thought they would. But anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Well, I always tell people, listen, I'm sure that your arguments are correct. I'm sure that all these names mean different things. But I tell people I'm the stupidest smart person they'll ever meet. Because certain things I just say, I'm just going to approach this simplistically. And I don't approach it academically at all. I approach it from, I have made the decision that I fully believe in God. I believe in God as the force in the universe that is bringing about all that is possible. I don't quite follow the idea that God is directly responsible for all evil. And so I feel that there's the necessity of there being an entity that has as its primary purpose working against God. And I consider that to be Satan, the devil, Lucifer.
Can I interrupt you really quick?
This is a place for interrupting.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Now, this is one of the topics I sent you.
It is.
You just opened it up because this is something that I've struggled with so much, and I need to get the other guys in the room here what some of their opinions are on this. And the question was, where did sin come from? If God created all, does that mean that the element of evil was actually in him? something he
Look at JJ.
JJ's jumping up and down.
He's over there just going.
I love you already. That's all I'm going to say.
Something he keeps at bay, perhaps that is something he doesn't want us to know that's inside of him that he will not reveal to us, because sin, it had every single thing on this planet basically came from God to some degree. It all came from God. So then how did this evil, I mean, how did it, I mean, people will say, iniquity was just found in Satan. Okay, well, where did it come from? Is there DNA inside of Lucifer that's actually an element of God that actually is the evil? So go ahead. That's my question.
Well, we'll add that particular question to what I was talking about was, one of the things you will hear Christians say over and over again is it doesn't really matter how bad things get. There's no possibility that God can lose. That in the end, the ending's already written. But, if we're talking personhood, if we're talking something that, perceives itself as an individual, perceives itself as something with will and power and capability, what does that thing perceive itself as? Is there the idea that, hey, I could win this thing? There could be a 92-yard Hail Mary pass right at the end, and I end up displacing, supplanting, dominating God.
Right.
Christianity rarely talks about that particular idea.
Well, they must believe it to some degree because, they're wasting a whole heck of a lot of time if they don't.
Well, I can tell you where that belief comes from.
He can.
Which is, I was rather shocked when I ran across it, because it's a question I've asked for many, many a year. Where did this absolute unshakable idea come from? And just to back up and maybe answer the other question that was posed, ancient Judaism was a strict monotheism. It did not believe in any other power than God. It was polytheistic in the sense that it acknowledged the existence of other gods, but yet it was God who controlled everything. And this includes lying spirits, it includes destruction, all the rest of it. However, after the first temple was destroyed and its people banished through the Babylonian exile, that's when Judaism came into contact with the most advanced dualistic religion that has ever existed. And that would definitely be Zoroastrianism. And in the Gethys, one of the oldest religious writings that exists, there is a story of, there's two realms. There's a realm of light and a realm of dark. And in the realm of light lies the creator, Ahura Mazda. And in the realm of the dark is Ahriman. And Ahriman, in his slowness, crawls to the edge of the realm of the dark and sees the realm of light, and he lusts for it. He wants that more than anything. But yet Ahura Mazda, over here in the realm of light, he knows everything, and he already knows that Ahriman will never succeed, but he will still fight. And Ahriman does. He creates devas or demons to do work for him. And he snarls at God, I will make your creatures hate you. And this is also where the idea that the world belongs to the enemy was also first proposed. And Christianity, and at that time, Second Temple Judaism, soaked all of these ideas up. It made them their own. It transmogrified them, but yet the root is still there.
Now, I can't pronounce the names you just pronounced, but technically, did the light one or God create the dark one? Or were
No,
they?
that's a great question. And no, it was already in existence.
Okay.
And see,
Um,
I'm of two minds because
well, that would sure make a lot more sense, wouldn't it?
it would, but so we recently had a recording for Demonology 301, which is a thing that Chris and the Wandering Road podcast and I do. And we also brought in Father Birdsong and Deacon Josh this time around. And I was reading the appendices to Hostage of the Devil again, a book that changed my life and shall always change my life. And it did so again because the appendices, like, for example, the question that we were tackling was, does, you know, I have always posited that free will serves as a barrier, not an absolute one, but it's a barrier that can keep the demonic at bay. And the question is that where did that idea come from? And so we all got together and we talked for 2+ hours on this particular topic. And the first part's already out. But in rereading Malachi Martin, he posits that that might not be the right way of thinking about it because it's the simple idea that at the beginning, God did create the rebel angels, but then they fell almost immediately, and they are the source of all falsehood that exists and treachery that exists in the world. Moreover, they are like, because the way Martin says it's beautiful, but he says that we as humans, we think of creation as a step-by-step process where this happens and then this had to be considered, and then and then after all this, Christ has to be born and blah blah blah. But no, it's rather God is omniscient and omnipotent, and so the act of creation is something that's done in eternity at all times. And so he knew that he would have to become human. And it's that which the rebel angels hate. And because they are both spirits, they are continuously reminded of this fact. And they will do anything to corrupt us creatures in order to putrefy and sully the human aspect of God. Anyway, I've blathered on. I didn't mean to dominate.
So
No,
along those lines,
questions too with that, I mean, as far as who wrote it, there's so many theories on this stuff, but when you think about even the Bible, like these books were written by men, so then you have to go back to how much of it do you believe? What feels right to you, what feels true, what is the truth?
Well, not only that, but the books that compose the Torah, the Navaim, and the Ketuvim, the law, the prophets, and the writings, they existed as oral traditions for hundreds of years before they were ever committed down and then canonized. And then you have a ton of writings such as the pseudepigrapha, which people claim to be someone that they're not from biblical history in order to lend their words even greater credence. So, yeah, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The more you study this stuff, the more it can begin to erode or make you question your faith. But I have to come down on the side of Immanuel Kant on this one. He said that there may be a category for everything, but there's not of God. And
Right.
yeah.
Yep.
Actually, that doesn't seem to have happened to you. It doesn't seem like your deep study into this area has been detrimental to your faith.
No, in fact, it actually strengthened it a great deal, because nothing is as simple or as whatever you might. Nothing is ever as simple as what you may think that it is. And in fact, it's that complexity which gives me a reassurance that I am on the right path. Oh, and that's what Kant said at the end. There's no category for God, and that leaves all the more room for faith. I forgot that last part. Sorry.
So as to the part about, does Satan feel like he has a chance to win? I think probably the standard answer to that in Catholic theology would be yes. And you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but from reading Father Chad Ripperger, the book Dominion, most of which he bases off of Aquinas, what he says is that the demons, before they fell, which you're right, was right after they were created. After they're created, he gives them the beatific vision, or whatever they call it. Here's the story. Here's how this is going to run out. And here's your part in it. And he gives them enough of it to know what their part is and the general plot line. And when it came to God was going to become man and they were going to have to bow down to a human, they're like, no, we're out. We're done. And the third of them choose to fall. But he says in that he did not give them the full view. So what Lucifer's working off of is, the Cliff Notes. He doesn't have the full story. So I think there's hope there. I think there probably is legitimate hope. Now, some of the exorcists will say, well, they know and they don't care. There's just hatred for everything human because of the way God did things. And they'd rather lose than, give in to that, to humans.
Better to rule in hell than to serve in heaven.
Right. Or in this case,
Or go out
in the
fighting.
end, not rule in hell, because in the end, it will be suffer in hell.
Suffer in hell.
Right. So, but I have to think that there's a belief that he can win that is unfounded, because it's founded on only a part of the picture.
Exactly. And that actually still comes from Zoroastrianism, where the enemy is not omniscient, has never been omniscient. He only has a limited set of knowledge to work off from. And so he thinks that he can win as a result. But I think both of those things can be true, what you just said, Dave. It's that, A, they're so full of hatred that they don't care. But B, yes, they're not running on the full amount of information. And so they do think that they can win.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. I think both things can be true. I agree. Now, on the Zoroastrianism thing, so who created those two beings?
Ahura Mazda created everything.
Isn't Ahura Mazda kind of the sort of deity who's beyond space and time and has always been and always will be, and is just fundamental to the existence of everything?
Exactly.
But you said he didn't create Ahriman.
He didn't. Ahriman was there in the realm of the dark, but Ahura Mazda created everything else.
I had an Ahriman sighting last night.
What?
If I had ears that could perk up, they would be up.
Was he
I know. It's
driving
like,
the
what
midnight
do you
ice
say?
cream trucks?
Oh, get out of here.
He was actually last night. Every once in a while, Tracy, this is a rabbit hole. Uh, every
Just
once in,
laughing.
every once in a while, I'll be doing my standard stuff. I'll be writing, I'll be recording, I'll be thinking, I'll be analyzing, and my brain will just say, "I'm tired."
Oh, I do that all the time, Vic.
I don't
You're
want to
just
think.
tired of just being,
Right. I don't want to think about anything serious anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Go find a really bad movie. And one of the places you can find some really bad movies is Tubi. And so
Oh.
I'm just sort of looking through and I come up with The Wishmaster.
Oh, it is so bad it's good. It goes around the opposite side and becomes amazing.
Oh, no.
All of the Dark Moon movies, a lot of them were like that.
Well, I mean, I believe that's what they said in the movie. They had a crate with a statue in it, and they're lifting it up on a ship, and this guy spills his booze on the console of the crane, and next thing you know, this statue of Ahriman is coming down.
Oh, no.
Nice.
And inside the packing material is this I don't know, big red ruby kind of thing. And of course, it's got an evil djinn in it. And it starts to make really, really bad things happen in the world. And so anyway, I just wanted to bring up the idea that the idea of Ahriman at least makes its way into movies occasionally.
Oh, yes.
Tracy, I feel that you've thought about this a long time. You were talking about the origin of sin. And
Yeah.
to me, that's a very important topic. And I'll tell you why. I hold myself responsible for living in a way that is as sin-free as possible and fail all the time. I mean, just every single day. If you were to start saying down, sins Victor has committed, well, that's not going to be an empty category ever.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the things that always fascinates me is I can't think in terms of eternity. Okay. Many Western religions talk about eternal punishment for your sins if they're unforgiven. Man, I'm barely a next Thursday kind of guy.
I know.
In terms of what do I feel like I have my mind around? Certainly not eternity. Maybe next Wednesday. Getting to next Thursday is a real, real hard thing to do. But so, how does God deal with the fact that humans will sin, even when they don't want to, and that we are so incredibly limited?
Mm-hmm. I don't know how he deals with that. I talk to him all the time about the concept of hell, that how could he, in all honesty, profess to be the loving God that we know he is, that we think he is, and be able to do something to the level that it's like the worst horror movie you've ever seen, to have that part of him. And then, you kind of hear him say, well, I'm not the one who sends people to hell. They choose to go there. It's they're serving the dark side. That's where and I'm like, come on, God, let's get real. I mean, there's people in the world that, there's the average sinner, what I would call the people that may not believe in you yet because, they live their a life, whatever, causes them not to believe, but they just do, normal sins, I would say. And then there's the people that, are the serial killers, the pedophiles, all the crap that goes on. And you're sitting here telling me that, that this is all the same to you, that it's all that, these smaller sins bleed into the bigger sins and it all kind of, is connected. And I get that, but I don't understand how we're supposed to, you give us families, people that we love, and we know that, let's say 98% of the population is going to hell. And we're supposed to just accept this. There's nothing that holds God accountable. There's nothing that can hold God accountable. So he can do whatever he wants, and everybody's just supposed to be okay with it. And if we're not okay with it, the fear is that we go to hell, because if we disagree with God, then we're going to hell. If we don't like something about God, then we're going to hell. And I've asked him, are you an egomaniac? Is there an essence to you that's bad, that's evil? How could you, in all honesty here, I mean, I know people ask these questions, and this is something, that you hear about all the time, but, one-on-one between me and you, God, how could you do this? How can you sit there, with nothing can hold you accountable, and you're able to profess this love for everybody, yet be able to do or create a place that's so horrific and unimaginable? And even if you don't do it, even if you don't send people there, say people, their soul dies and they just end up following whatever they served. So their soul floats to whatever dimension it's going to float to, or whatever. Maybe the demons come and get you. I don't know how it works exactly. I mean, you hear all these near-death encounters, but how do you stand there and, watch this, know this is happening, and we're all supposed to go to heaven and be happy while, our children are in hell, our grandchildren are in hell, people we loved, and this is okay with you, God. You're okay with this, that your master plan, that this is what you've come up with. Of all the things that you could do, this is what you've come up with. And nobody can do anything about it. There's nothing we can do. And so then, you have to ask yourself, God, do the people that follow you really love you, or are they just afraid to go to hell? And I struggle with this. I love the Lord. I serve the Lord every day. I try not to sin, but I have had some talks with him, let me tell you. And I don't know of anything that can help me with the struggles I have, short of being transferred to heaven and, walking into the throne room and having a sit down with him, because I don't know anybody that could really give me an answer that would settle me, that would make sense, because it's coming from a man. It's not coming from God. I don't know, somebody can sit there and give me all the theories they want, but it doesn't mean it's fact. So it doesn't help me. Nothing helps me. So I'm really struggling with some of this. Even with Jesus, why did Jesus have to die? Why did Jesus have to be brutalized and shed blood? What is the point with, who made this rule up? Was it God that made this? And why would he make this? Is there a vampiric quality to God? What's up with this blood stuff? There's just some of this stuff. It's like, it just, I struggle with it so much, and I don't know what to do. I don't know where to turn to get answers.
I hope one of you guys have something cogent to say, because I haven't formulated anything yet.
Well,
Me neither.
it's tough. The blood stuff is sort of makes sense, because Christianity from its root is a blood sacrifice religion. People don't think of it that way, but you had to sacrifice, animals, lambs, heifers, whatever, and to atone for sin to God, before Christ.
But
And
the
so,
killing is acceptable then. The killing in God's realm isn't really evil to him. Like the suffering of a creature, whether it's a human or an animal or whatever, it's still a living creature that God created, and that's okay with him.
Yes,
apparently.
because God made the first sacrifice. He sacrificed the first animal to clothe Adam and Eve. So that was
Lord.
the first sacrifice known. And now that doesn't say go out and kill animals just for the heck of it, right? But we kill animals to eat them. We kill animals to clothe ourselves. So no, the killing of an animal and the sacrifice of an animal is not considered to be a evil thing. He separates out killing of humans versus killing of animals. And so that's a pretty clear separation and pretty clear history of the blood sacrifice. Putting Christ in the role of that sacrifice was a novel idea. I'm sure Jesus wasn't a huge fan of it, but
No, it wasn't.
it made a point, and the suffering that he went through is what made it so powerful. It made it the sacrifice for all ages to look back on it and go, what he suffered for us is huge.
Right. It's not, so I can give you the standard kind of Catholic line, and Josh, you can correct me if I get anything wrong, which I'm sure that I will. But it's the sense that with Christ's birth, he sanctified life and then became closer to us by limiting himself into our experiences. And by choosing death, then he liberated us in victory from death. Now, that is the pat answer. In terms of the entire theodicy and the question of evil, I wish I had a pat answer for that. I don't. The only thing that I can say is, as a Christian, I have struggled with that same question for eons. And the only answer that I have is that I don't believe in the horrendous narrowing of who will get in. I don't think it's 144,000. In fact, I mean, and I'm not trying to question anyone's belief that's listening to this. Don't take it that way.
Yeah.
But everything in Revelation is a symbol, and
Right.
that too is a symbol.
A symbol.
Right.
Exactly. And so to me, it is for those who willingly embrace evil in whatever form that it is. But it has to be, it's not just, oh, you didn't pray or you didn't go to church. I mean, I can tell you right now, my grandmother, when a preacher came out trying to get her to go to their church before she passed away from cancer, she looked him dead in the eye and said, buddy, I can find God faster in a tobacco field than I could ever find him in your church. Do I think that she's in hell? No. And if she is, then that's not a heaven I would want to go to. It's very simple. So to me, that is what makes the most sense. But then again, you know, this, you have the realm of the flesh and you have the realm of the spirit. And yes, we have been able to divine a decent bit, but is it anywhere close to a full picture? No. Is it barely like the foreword of the biggest book that's ever been written? Maybe, but we absolutely do not have the full picture, and we won't.
I just hope God doesn't hold us accountable for what we don't know. And, you know, that's one thing. And then even the part with, the first sacrifice with God, killing the human to clothe men. I mean, I don't know where we go from God, sacrificing some animals or killing some animals to take the fur to clothe men because of sin, to Jesus has to die. Like, I don't know how we go from there to there. Like it's like this is crazy. Like this, it gets into the realm of crazy to me when you break down just the common sense of it and some of the way of God's mind. It's like, it's just like, wow. I mean, this is just like I said, it scares me that there's such a lack of accountability, and I hear some of the terms that really, really go through me. Well, first, I can't stand, I don't like hearing about how everybody has to be a servant or, or obey. Like there's a lot of terms that kind of are like, okay, that's, I'm not sure that's what God's really looking for. I think he's looking for more of a relationship, not as much of, you hear people all the time talking about, serving and I get the whole serving, each other and helping each other, loving each other, that type of stuff and being obedient to God. But there's a lot of other terms that get thrown in there, directed towards people, like, relationships. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but, it just, some of this stuff is like, you can just feel a lot of man in there, man's ways and man, the way they worded it as opposed to what really God's intentions were, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. So, but yeah, I don't know. This is just something it's really, some of it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm just not so sure that what we've been told is really all the truth. I'm not, some of these stories, I don't know if they're actual stories or if it's truth. And I'm trying to find my way through it, which we all are.
You're not alone in that category.
Yeah, I know. I know. Some of it just doesn't feel like God to me. There's things that I hear that you hear and you're just like, that just doesn't feel. And I'm not saying I have that picture of God being all loving and all forgiving, because believe me, I don't. I think he is an absolute, he loves us. He's our father, but he's an absolute, like, you're going to listen, like, I don't think that, I think he has laws and that he expects us to abide by his laws and learn to be better people. And he had intentions for us, and things, went a bit awry. But I don't know. It's just been really a hard time for me with some of this stuff. It's hard when it hits you and you don't feel that it's true, like with something that you hear that you're supposed to believe, and you feel in your soul of souls that that's not completely true. That doesn't feel right to me. And so I don't know what to do. I'm like, some of this stuff, I'm like, I don't know who to turn to discuss this with, because nobody really has the answers.
Well, I think a lot of that is misinterpretation of scripture or expanding upon scripture more
Mm-hmm.
than what it means, especially when it comes to the man, woman, husband, wife. And JJ will tell you it's not in a vacuum. It has a lot to do with the culture and the knowledge and the habits at the time, that you have to understand the context of the scripture.
Right.
And I mean, without getting into details of all of it, I think a lot of what you're talking about there is a preacher taking and expanding upon what he has read, and now everybody, uh, servants, and you'll hear, here's a prime example, is slavery. They'll say, the Bible has slavery in it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they equate that to the same thing as slavery in the United States back in the 1700s, 1800s. And it's like, no, 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 this is not the same thing. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of that was indentured servitude, that type of thing. It wasn't, people were taken off a boat and sold into slavery type of stuff. And then furthermore, it was for a defined period of time. Every 7 years, debts were forgiven. So
Right.
it wasn't like a lifehood, a lifetime of servitude. So there's a complete misunderstanding of a lot of things. And,
Well, that's what I'm
as
getting
we've
at,
talked before,
kind
a
of.
lot of the Southern, churches and Bible thumpers will sometimes go a little far in that direction.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there is especially I'm from Tennessee. It's one of the many buckles of the Bible Belt. And there's this firm belief in a lot of Protestantism where anyone can just pick up the Bible and read it and instantly understand everything that there is. And then they are qualified to go off and give sermons. And that is simply not the case.
One of the most profound things, Tracie, JJ actually comes up with a lot of very profound things, but one of those things was he was talking about going to various churches in Tennessee. I think these were mostly small, independent, non-denominational, marginally Protestant churches. Well, certainly Protestant churches. But it was a church that was built around the personality of the preacher there.
Oh, geez.
And that the doctrines taught in that church might be very different from what was taught in the church half a mile or 2 miles down the road. Heck, JJ, I don't know. Maybe they even got together for fistfights sometimes.
I wouldn't doubt it, honestly. But yeah, I heard a lot. I mean, I heard some really good messages, and then I heard absolutely deviant theology, such as everyone has a guardian angel, and if you don't make it into heaven, then your guardian angel is banished to limbo forever.
Well,
it's the most ridiculous thing
that
ever.
is absolutely ridiculous. But
yeah, but the whole everybody has a guardian angel thing is more of a Catholic thing than a Protestant thing.
Oh, I know, but you find it in a lot of folk concepts within the South as well. But yeah, the entire limbo, banished,
right.
You won't find that anywhere. I'm sorry.
I would like to go back to a word that was used a few minutes ago, and that word was servant. And Josh, you can help me out on this. I know that in the movie The Exorcist and in other transcriptions of what's happened in exorcisms, that there's many of the prayers will implore God to look down with mercy upon thy servant Reagan. Is that correct? Incorrect?
Yep. In the exorcism prayer, there is a part where you ask for God to show mercy on their servant.
Yeah, and you find that in a lot of Orthodox religions as well. In the Lafafa Sedek, you'll find a lot of things that are asking God within magical spells in order to look after your servant X or Y.
Correct. Well, but the thing is...
Can I ask you guys something really quick before I forget this thought?
Please do.
Do you believe that a person that is possessed by a demon can still make it to heaven?
Yes.
Okay.
While in the state of possession?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's not really there.
Yeah, that's, I mean, the actions of the demon don't equate to the sin of the individual.
Unless they are perfectly possessed.
Unless they are perfectly
I would
possessed.
argue that there's no way in hell.
Yeah, I can't imagine them being perfectly possessed and not having rejected God, right? The unforgivable sin, the rejected Holy Spirit.
Do you think
If they're
many
the
of us
type that
are
perfectly
possessed?
asked for possession.
Well,
right.
Several things. One, Tracie, I'm going to get to that question. I promise you. There must be, in my mind, something important about the word servant, because not very many people in the world think of themselves as being servants of God. Some people do. They actively think of themselves as that. Some people would be offended if you called them servants of God. They think of themselves as enemies of God.
Wow.
But most people think of themselves just simply as morally neutral creatures existing, and their goal is not from a moment to moment on a moment to moment basis serving God. So why do they use that particular word?
I don't know. It's kind of like the wedding feast. I hear that a lot. being used, and I always cringe. I don't know why I cringe. I know it's
You mean
an accepted terminology, or description of it, but I'm always like, it's not a wedding, okay? It's just
you're talking about
something.
Cana? What exactly are you talking about there?
Well, they talk about, the return of Jesus and to have your lamps filled and, being ready for the wedding
Oh,
feast.
okay,
And I'm
yeah.
just like, oh, come on with the wedding feast term. I mean, I don't know if that's what God considers it, but it just, something about it is so weird to me because you think of a wedding, it's between a man and a woman, and there's like a sexual element to it. And then you hear people talk like that. And I just cringe every time I hear it. And I don't really know why I cringe. It just seems it's just something you relate to between humans here on Earth as like a contract to enter into, for, being married and the physical contact and all that stuff. So then when they use it for, Jesus, it makes me cringe. I don't know why, it just does. So every time I hear it, I get like, oh, please don't say it. And then you'll hear people, they're constantly talking about that.
It does kind of make me cringe a little bit too.
It's cringy to me. Yeah. I
So-
hate that term. I hate it.
I had a hard time with that as well
I'm so
when I
glad you
first
guys.
started thinking through it.
You're so
Yeah.
glad. I'm sorry, Tracy, you cut out there. I didn't hear what you said.
No, I said I'm so glad I'm not alone in this. That you both,
No.
the two of you now, have said you've had a hard time with it. So
You have to
being a
what I
servant of
do.
God is not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do just from the fact that I'm a barely next Thursdayism kind of guy. And it's not an easy thing to do because the ideas can be very challenging.
hmm yeah,
The wedding thing, you think of the church is considered to be the bride of Christ.
The bride of Christ.
that's the other one. Yeah, the bride and
Right.
the wedding feast.
And
Yeah.
so when you look at that, what that's implying, and JJ can probably explain it, with anything I miss here, but it's implying that together we're whole.
Mhm.
There's no sexuality in it, because if
I
you
know.
think of it from a afterlife perspective, sex has no meaning. Sex is a living human concept.
Right.
It's just like the idea of being married in heaven is not what it means down here.
hmm
Your wife, your husband in heaven, you don't have gender like you do here.
hmm
You're made whole. So
Can I
it has different meaning.
can I
because of that.
expand on that a little bit?
Yes, because that's
Okay.
as far as I can go.
Well, I'm going to ask you some.
I know that too. I know that, but the bride, like I said, it's not that I'm trying to be too judgy with it. It's just something in me that just cringes every time I hear the bride, that Jesus is coming to get his bride. And I'm like, God, it's like, it just sounds perverse to me. I don't, it's just something, it's like a pet peeve, or, what is it called? Not a pet peeve, but it's just something that
It's an
it irks
irritant
me
to you.
when I just don't like it. I don't care for that term. I think it's really weird.
One of the
Yeah.
ideas I have had concerning, gosh, my brain just totally just died here. What is the problem of why is there evil? The Odyssey?
Because people. The Odyssey, yes.
The Odyssey, yes. Why is there evil? Why would a perfectly loving God allow evil? Well, and one of the arguments that always comes up is free will. That God's not doing it; humans are. And I largely buy that argument. I largely agree with that argument. But another thought that I've had in my mind is that just as the enemies of God, demons, Satan, exist in a state of partial information, so do we.
Right.
Okay, so do we.
And much more so than demons.
And much more so than demons. And we don't even really know what we are.
I know.
Okay.
Good way to put it, Vic.
We don't even know
It's so true.
what we are.
And what
So-
we're capable of.
Agreed. And part of my view is that perhaps we're much, much more than just this stuff, this flesh, this very limited brain and mind. And that we become this for some period of time to return to being something much more.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we experience here really is preparing us for something much greater and much larger. Now, do I have any evidence to support this? No, this is just from long hours hiking out in the woods and thinking while I'm taking showers and writing stuff for Trailer Trash Terrors and this sort of stuff. But, I mean, Tracie's mentioned a number of things that I think are important. The questioning of God is a sin? Nah, I don't think so.
No.
They're hoping not, because we have some rough nights together.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, we have a lot of wonderful nights too. Believe me, there is so much love and joy I have with him, but boy, there are some nights I get hit with some crap.
All right, gentlemen and lady, I'm going to roll again. Or we can talk about topic 6, which was any direct ghost encounters in this group.
Ooh.
Oh God, I could sit here all day and talk about things. But now, do you mean literal ghosts, like where you see an apparition?
Hey, this is the rundown. It means,
I know. I'm just asking if you want to be technical about this. I mean, is this
Well-
like a literal ghost, or is it like just all kinds of encounter
Well,
stories?
there's no, as far as I know, there's not a perfect definition for the word ghost.
Well, how about this? How about we start with Tracie? What do you think a ghost is? How would you define a
I
ghost?
can't believe you just said that. You're reading my mind right now.
He's very good at that.
That is, I was just going to ask you guys, do you feel that ghosts are actually ghosts of people, or do you feel that they're demons?
Well, what do you think?
Boy, I'm tossed with this. I think deep down I feel that they're demons, that they're there to trick people. I feel that, but could there be cases where they are actually lost souls that never went to the light? Or I just don't know. I don't know. I used to feel, that they were ghosts and that they could be people and that type of stuff. But like every time I hear a psychic, and I've talked to some psychics and stuff, and I shouldn't talk to psychics ever. I mean, nobody really should, I guess. But I wanted to kind of get their idea of just to try to talk and see, where they think they're getting the information from. What do they really feel, and that type of stuff. And I just feel like, there's something in me that's like, no, Tracie, it's demonic. Stay away from it. It's not really a person. So what do you guys think? I mean, I don't know. I can't say.
Well, I'll get my experiences.
Go ahead.
Out
You
of the
tell
way.
yours, Vic, and then I'll
get my experiences out of the way real quick because I've had 2. Neither of them seem to me to be anything other than human energy of some kind. The first ghost, or the first thing that I think was a ghost, was of a person that was still technically alive.
Oh boy.
It was not a dead person yet. Very close, but not yet. It was a young man, about 24, 25. He had been shot with a .25 caliber pistol 13 times in his head. Just like a sieve. His girlfriend got angry. She found him with another woman and just pumped his head full of lead.
Holy crap.
This is a bad, bad time. But he was in this state where, and I don't know why we were going through such efforts to keep him alive, but we were. Sometimes doctors do that. Pull out everything, do the mannitol, just do everything you can do to keep this person alive. And you'd have to understand how this ICU was set up. It was one long corridor with a bump out in the middle where you had all of the utility rooms and kind of a small nurse station and a monitoring station. He was right next to that wall. And I was walking down to that end of the unit, and I saw him standing next to his bed while he
Oh,
was still in the bed. There was kind of a shimmery, translucent kind of feel to him. And he was looking at me, excuse me, and anyone else he could, I suppose, mouthing, "Help me, help me." And he was kind of pointing down at his body as if he was aware that something was horribly wrong and that he could do nothing about it. And so I watched this for 10, 12 seconds, turn to try to get other people to say, "Hey, look down there. What do you see?" And as I turned back, it kind of faded away.
Oh, that's sad.
Oh, very sad. Very, very sad.
That's sad. Yeah.
And then the only other thing I've had along those lines was recently, like just last 6 weeks or so, I was in Baldwin's Book Barn in here in Pennsylvania, Westchester, Pennsylvania. I was up on the 4th floor where they have all of their paranormal and psychic and spooky books. Was just looking for something, looked over in the corner, and there was what I had thought was Amish. My other people I've talked to have now told me that it was probably Quaker. Elderly man, straw hat, canvas pants, blue shirt, boots, big beard, just standing there in the corner, totally unaware of me, totally unconcerned about me, and then walked into the wall and disappeared. So both of these sightings were 30 seconds or less, and both of them held zero feeling of fear or threat to me. But they did feel very human. So that's mine. That's what I've experienced.
Okay. So what do you guys think? What is your opinion of it?
Oh, me? I agree with Dave. I mean, I don't think it's the stone tape thing. I think, Mr. Stoltzfus or whoever that was there, they had something they needed to do. They were working out some issue or something over time. And my presence there, or lack thereof, didn't mean anything to what he was doing. I think the ghost of the young man was his spirit trying to get some help. I mean, can you imagine the horror of that?
It would be horrible.
There was a man that was doing that. What's it called? The outer body. Oh, what's it called when you go into that
Astral projection?
Astral projection, yes. And he was doing this, and he went into this realm where he saw a man. He was like a rabbi or a Jewish man standing there, or he's sitting there in this room, and he had his like a briefcase or whatever with him, and he looked at the guy. He came into this room where this guy was. It was a spirit. And he just looked at him. He said, "What took you so long?" And he what had happened was he got so good at astral projection that he started to he was actually, I guess he had started some kind of a group of people that were going in and collecting souls that had gotten trapped or lost, and they would find them and help them get free.
Soul rescue.
Yeah, it was a soul rescue, literally. And so he went into this room, and that's what it always stuck with me, that he walked in and he saw this guy, and he was like, "What took you so long?" And he got him out of there and set him free.
Who was this to you?
I don't remember what his name is. I could try to find it. It was
But it wasn't a relative of yours.
No relative. Okay. No, it was just a story it was a man I had run into, an article on him, and he, this is just something he had done or does. I don't know if he still does it or whatever, but yeah, it's interesting to me. I just don't know what to think. It's hard to, I mean, are demons tricking people? Is it, are they really ghosts of people? I mean, could it be both? I just don't know. I
It
don't
could
really have
definitely
the
be
answer.
both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the both category.
Yeah.
I've had quite a few encounters. My family has had quite a few encounters with both types. And there are definitely things that are out there, especially to these poor people that go willy-nilly opening doors, such as using Ouija or playing with Kukuri-san in Japan or whatever it may be. And they think that they're speaking to an earthbound spirit when it is anything but that. And I won't rehash some of my own, but I've had family history. Some of these stories have been handed down for more than 100 years, where things have attached themselves and physically attacked family members, and the only thing that could save them was the Lord's Prayer. And that's happened to a very old ancestor of mine, happened to my grandmother, in fact. So, just based upon everything I heard growing up, things that I have experienced, I have encountered spirits that have filled me with fear, but it's never been a flight or fright.
Right.
Well, you had a few experiences in Japan that were deeply frightening to you.
Oh, and honestly, I have no idea what in the hell to excuse the term. I have no idea what to classify that, because it was so alien to me that I have no idea, and I have long thought about it over and over and over again, and I still am no closer to an answer than that fateful morning when it happened to me.
Was it alien? Was it an ET-ish type of experience, or was it?
No,
Are you just saying it's just
this
an
was
alien?
definitely a spirit of some type. Whether that was demonic or not, I don't know. I'll give you the very, very brief rundown if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was up working all night. I had just fallen asleep. I'm living in Tokyo. And the next thing I know, I see this translucent entity on my balcony screaming at me and banging on the door, saying a word I did not understand, saying Haidu, 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 Haidu. But the sound was being injected straight into my brain. My ears were not involved. And upon every pronunciation, there was just shattering pain going on in my head.
Oh.
And I wake up to an earthquake alarm going off on my phone. And once the room stopped shaking, so I was there shortly after 3/11, I ran to my dictionary and looked it up. And sure enough, the word it was saying was to enter. This thing wanted entry. And I know if I actually had somehow not been paralyzed with the pain, that would have been the end of me right then and there.
Oh, wow.
So I have no idea what the heck it was. All I know is that I lived right across the road from a graveyard that I used to walk by all the time. I never went by that graveyard again.
Well, let me ask you a question I've always wanted to ask you, JJ.
Sure.
You know how sometimes when you're really, really exhausted, you've been working for hours and hours and hours, and man, you've finally gone to sleep. And that sleep is good sleep. I mean, you're way down in there in the sawing logs category.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes when you're in that sort of sleep, no matter what needs to be done, your body can still get up and do it kind of automatically without really spending a lot of time thinking about it. If you had gotten up physically and opened that door, do you, as 2024 JJ, think you would have been physically harmed? Would that have been a psychic attack on you? What would that have been?
I would have been snuffed out.
So we wouldn't be doing this particular rundown episode with you.
No, Southern Demonology would not have ever existed. I would not have been married. None of that would have happened. In fact,
well, I'm really glad that you were lazy.
Me too. Actually, the funny thing is that just a few weeks ago, I was discussing this with Anna Maria Manello, who had been a guest here and on my podcast, and is a wonderful author. And she had never heard that story, and we got talking about it briefly. I gave her the synopsis, and she said, well, it's a really good thing that you were awoken by that earthquake alarm, because you don't know what would have happened if that dream had continued on for a while, would you? I said, nope, I would not. And that sent chills down my spine, because I'm like, yeah, you know what? I never thought about it that way, and you're absolutely correct.
Reminds me of the dream I had about Satan, or he was trying to kill me. And I woke up.
Oh, we should talk. We have to talk. Over Lent, I had 3 demonic dreams that caused me. I have never felt pain in a dream. I'm not trying to bore people that I've heard this before. I've never felt pain in a dream, but I had these 3, and they were 3 dreams, and they scared the absolute bejeebus out of me. I did an entire episode on it called "The Pain of Dreaming Demonic," and
it's awful.
I have to talk to you about yours, because I'm a person who suffers from nightmares habitually. 90% of my dreams are nightmares. These things have made every one of those nightmares, even the ones where I have died, pale in comparison.
Well, why don't you? I'll tell you what works well for me. I don't know if you can sleep with the TV on or not. Can you sleep with the TV on, or can you have something on in your house, like in another room?
I can, yeah.
Put the Bible on something that plays out for like 8 hours, 5 hours, whatever you can. Something as long as you possibly can. Not something all weird and zenned out, but like the real Holy Bible. Put it on low, like down to 10 or 7. Pick a number that's not 6, or something that's of a demonic number. Pick a like God's number, or 10 or 15 or something, and play it on low and go to bed. And
that's actually, it's funny you say that, because I was in contact with a bishop, and I had gone on their YouTube channel for an interview, which I've done a number of times, and he sent me out an entire pack that was filled with exorcised holy water, exorcised oil. And yeah, I spread that stuff in the cross form at the head of my bed. I have put it over every doorway of my home. And ever since then, I've been fine. I haven't had any more of those dreams, but it tends to be every 25 years, I will have a set of 3 of these.
Yeah, I noticed the Bible. I sleep like a baby whenever I have the Bible playing, even if I could be in my bedroom with the door shut, and I'll put it on in the kitchen, because I've got a sitting area out in the kitchen. I put it on low, and it just, they don't want to make them as miserable as you can. That's all you can really, you do, but that's Yeah, I've had some really wicked, some of the stuff that, Satan, I mean, I wasn't breathing, so he was literally, it was pretty crazy. But yeah, it's playing the Bible helps a lot. I always
Oh,
wonder with
trust
these
me.
I always wonder with these Dogmen sightings and these Bigfoot sightings that go on, these people that have these issues with these cryptids and ETs that show up on their say they have a ranch or a farm or even their property. It could be anything. If people would just put a little speaker outside and put that on blast at night, not loud, but put the Bible on all night long, and I wonder if they'd still be showing up then. I'd be really curious. I'm very curious about that, like that Skinwalker Ranch that they air. I would love to see if they did something like that, if there anything would happen, if there would be any changes for the positive.
I've wondered that myself. In fact, the other funny coincidence is that in that same interview with Anna Maria Manello, like when she was on the rundown, she went over her newest book at the time, which was over uh, kind of alien visitation, but
Hmm.
and I hadn't gotten a chance to read it, but when she was kind of given an overview of some of her latest works and stuff like that, she was actually couching this much more in terms of, because there were two people. There was a researcher who had found a woman who suffered from this type of thing. And then during the process of contacting her and hearing her story, he was attacked. But his attack was more of a blessing than it was to her. Hers was horrendous and vicious and nasty, and his was much more loving and gentle. And
Hmm.
then when Anna Maria got involved, she had an encounter with something, and she consulted an exorcist, and she like severely limited the time in which she would work on this book to only in the daytime, only after like rigorous prayers before and after, and she was able to get through it. But yeah, and that has always kind of made me question exactly what you're doing.
Hmm.
Hmm. I wonder if that would have a profound effect. I
Yeah,
don't know.
you would think so.
Well, in listening to your podcast, Tracie, I heard you say on one of them that you heard, and I'd like to hear how this process goes, but you heard from God that the ETs were demonic.
I did. Yeah, I was in my kitchen, and I had always thought the ETs were another race of beings that God had created. And I never thought, in fact, my mother used to think that God was an ET. It was when she said that to me, I was like, what? But I was like, well, I mean, no matter how however whatever word you want to give for him or however you want to visualize him, he's still God. So I don't know. I mean, I can't say, if God's an ET or not, Mom, but it
Right.
sounds a little crazy. So I was just standing there talking one day about something, and I was talking about the aliens. Something came up, I think, on YouTube or whatever, and I was making a comment about them, and I remember just as clear as day I heard God's voice, and I know his voice because it's calm, and it's like I just know as you just know it. And I heard telepathically he just said, Tracie, really, just calmly, he just said, they're demons. And I remember just stopping dead in the middle of the kitchen going, what? And I remember looking up, and I was like, what do you mean? I was like, are you serious? And then he said, they're demons. And I was like, I just was dumbfounded. I just stood there. I just couldn't even believe it. But I knew this came from God because it didn't come from me. I mean, I didn't, I never thought of this, and I could hear him talking to me. So it was really crazy. But yeah, that's when I realized that I was like, wow, they're demonic. They're not actually another race of people.
Hmm.
So Yeah, that's just what I heard. It's just like when I saw Jesus's birthday, I'm still convinced it's October 31st. I don't know that for a fact, but I remember asking Jesus when I went to bed one night, what is your real birthday? I said, Lord, I want to know, what is your real birthday? And I said, I know there's a lot of theories about it being in April, and, people believe it could be, October, or not October, but it was like, there was a couple different months in there. And I remember I went to bed that night and I woke up, and as I was waking out of a dream, I saw this plane fly over and I saw October 31st. And I was like, oh my, I was like, that's not possible. And I sat there on my bed, like on the edge of the couch, and I was like hearing, feeling like this download that this is Jesus's real birthday. And I was like, I was just dumbfounded. I was sitting there like, that would make such sense. I'm like, that's the most evil day of the year that the demons have, that the devil has created on this planet. I said, it makes perfect sense to me, Lord. And I was like, you're never going to convince anybody of it, but I'm very interested to know hopefully when I get to heaven one day, if that really is the day he was born. I would be just absolutely just dumbfounded if it really was true. So it was just something that, it's crazy, the communications that you get.
Can I ask a question around that? Let's say that Jesus was indeed born on October 31st.
Mm-hmm.
JJ, how did they transition from the Roman calendar to the Gregorian calendar and maintain any consistency in dates? Do you know?
Well, really, it was Charlemagne who was, he, after his battle, in which he attributed to God granting him strength and valor and victory, that he decided to turn his nation into a Christian one in homage, and then began to co-opt a lot of the pagan religions dates that were going on in order to make them more Christianized. I mean, assimilation is always better than usurpation. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that's essentially kind of how it worked out. Yeah.
October 31st. Okay, well, Tracie, you're the first person I've ever heard say that.
But Vic, do you know how profound that was for me to sit there and I'm seeing this plane fly over this big banner. And this is the same time he healed my tooth. The same exact time. It was like days around each other. It was the same time I saw Jesus in my dream. He showed me himself in my dream because I had asked him to show me himself when I went to sleep. I said, will you please come to me in my dream and let me see you? I didn't say, let me hear you. And he didn't speak. And the humor wasn't lost on me that he didn't speak. And then I asked him about his birthday, and then my tooth was miraculously healed. And this was the same week. And I remember going to bed, and I asked him, I said, I was like, Jesus, would you tell me when your real birthday is? I said, I know there's different theories on it. And when I saw that and just how it hit me, it was like complete, like, this freaking makes so much sense. It's the one day in the entire year, all the sacrifices, most evil day of the year, everybody running around looking like dead people and ghouls and murderers. And I mean, I'm like, of course Satan would turn this day into that.
JJ, what is the church perspective on that? I mean, I know that there's Christmas, but there is an actual date that is in tradition, isn't there?
Yeah, and it's All Hallows Eve or All Saints Eve. It's the vigil before All Saints Day on November 1st.
When Christ was born?
Oh.
No. This is just about Halloween itself. Yeah, and honestly, I would argue that Halloween is one of the most Christian of all holidays because it is really All Saints Eve, All Hallows Eve. And, even if you hearken back to Samhain, or if you mispronounce it Samhain, like I have in the past, then it's still a very part of a sacred set of religious practices of different various faiths out there. But anyway, that's neither going here nor
I
there.
don't know. I would disagree with that only in the fact that I understand, but I mean it's a well-known fact in, the satanic cults and everything, the amount of children that are sacrificed and the satanic stuff that goes on. I mean, it's very recognized that that's a day, it's the most evil day of the year. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert on it.
I'm definitely not discounting the darkness that you find around that day at all. Yeah, please don't take it like that. Because I was just talking about the idea of Halloween more so than I was, anything else. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Popular culture would move it toward the evil side.
I just think it's interesting. It was something that I did not expect in a million years, because I've heard that, a lot of people thought that Jesus could have potentially been born in April. There was different theories on it, and that nobody really knew his true birthday, but they had thought it was more along the lines of spring and what we would consider spring. But when I saw that, I was like, this didn't just come out of nowhere. I mean, I don't think it did. I don't know. And I'll never know. I mean, we're not going to know that until, hopefully we meet Jesus one day and, we would know. But I would think I'm going to be very amazed if that is really, if that turns out to really be his birthday. So that was pretty crazy. And there's no way to verify it, but it was just an interesting story, interesting dream.
Well, there's another source out here that puts it somewhere maybe in mid to late September. So
really?
You may not be far off. You might, who knows?
Well, I asked him, and that's what I got. I asked him,
that's
cool. What I got. And that's what he said, he just showed me this banner, October 31st. I was like, wow, Lord. I just sat there just amazed. I couldn't get over it. I was so just absolutely stunned. I was like, that is just crazy. But then it just made so much sense to me.
Well, I mean, it would be interesting if Christ was born during or around Obon in Japan, the Festival of the Dead. That would be interesting. And then, I mean, in addition, I mean, you'll have your answer as to when Christ was born. And when my death happens, I will know if my dream prophesizing the day of my death comes true or not. So,
wow.
That's got to be a rough one to have.
Honestly, I never think about it. November 2nd is the day that.
Oh, he told us, he's never mentioned that date.
Yeah, my great grandfather.
He's sitting huddled up in his house on November 2nd, like just drinking some tea, watching some. We all watch the Bible all day long today.
No, actually, it always it doesn't matter how much it's on my mind until before that day.
Yeah.
At that day, it never once enters into my brain until it's like the day after that or the day after that. And I go, oh, yeah, it's another November 2nd that happened.
Survived another year.
I can guarantee you guys that there will be a day in the not too distant future when I'm just going to ask you to drop whatever else you're doing and just spend the day with me.
Oh, that would be fun. Well,
and the reason is that my father, his father, and his father all died on the exact same day.
What?
My father, his father, and his father all died on the exact same day.
Vic, that's really weird.
That's okay. We're going to have a priest sit down and say, the prayers to break generational curses with him before that day. He just doesn't know it yet.
Should I not play with my voodoo dolls on that
day? How crazy is that, though? Like, that's so. How is that even possible?
I don't know. I just know that was the...
you'll be the one exception and skip you.
Well, listen, I'm in much better shape and much healthier than any of those people were. So
yeah,
I've done everything I can do. So
I have a weird connection with Brandon Lee. I don't know where this came from, but I was going through this thing for years where I wouldn't think of him, or I didn't have a thing for him, and nothing. Just out of the blue, every single year. Well, it was like March 31st or something, the day that he died. I would start thinking about him like 3 days before and want to watch The Crow and want to, just like start looking. And then I would always be like dumbfounded that, oh my gosh, this is the day he died. And this is like, I'm looking for this movie. Like, what is going on? So I always had this went on for years, and I never knew what it was. I thought, I don't know if this is just some kind of crazy thing or what, but I don't know, just stuff like that happens, and you're just like, it's just too strange, it's like too coincidental, and you wonder what the connection is.
Was he one of the guys that died because of a blank and a handgun or something?
Yes, he was Bruce Lee's son.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I've always
he
loved
was
the
killed on
martial art.
set of the Crow.
Yeah.
In fact, the final scene of that movie, he actually does get shot, and he still wanted to finish the movie before he got treated.
You're kidding me.
Really?
I didn't know that.
Bad idea there, Lee. Get treated, finish the movie later.
Oh,
But that was supposed to be a generational curse.
Mhm.
it was, yeah.
Yeah. Because the curse was his father's curse too, right?
Yeah, his dad died. He went into a mysterious coma. They thought it was, they had theories that it could have been, the Chinese mob, and that they were trying to take him out because he was sharing the martial arts with all the people in America, and or they thought it was the curse, and he had been allergic to marijuana, and somebody thought maybe they had slipped some in his food or drink or whatever, maybe, or this curse had done something where he ended up, ingesting marijuana, and that's what put him in this mysterious coma. So and then he died from it. I think he was 32 or 33.
Yeah, he wasn't very old at all.
I think he was 32. I think Brandon was 28. And but it started to get really freaky because this was happening every year like clockwork. And, you'd go all year and you wouldn't think anything of it. And then all of a sudden, like the day he died, you hadn't heard anything on the radio. You hadn't seen anything. There were no because this was years and years later, like decades later. And all of a sudden, you're just thinking about The Crow, and you're thinking about Brandon Lee, and you're looking stuff up. And then, I'm like, oh my God, this is every year. The time he dies, I'm doing this. What is going on? Like, what's the connection here?
When did it start?
It was, oh my gosh, I don't even know. I don't know what year it started. I just remember it just had gone on year after year after year until I finally I had started to become so aware of it that it stopped. That I was like, okay, something's going on. I don't know if there's some kind of spiritual connection thing going on or whatever here, but this is weird. And so it went on for like another 2 years after that. And then I started to become so ultra aware of it that it kind of made it stop. So, but it went on for a long time. I mean, I know the one of the last years that I was recognizing it was probably about, maybe 20 years ago. God, that shows my age. Shouldn't even say that. I'm ashamed.
Beats the alternative. So, JJ, is there anything you need to say before you have to go deal with earthly matters?
Just the fact that it was a pleasure and an honor to be able to speak with you, Tracie, and I hope to be able to follow up offline and schedule you for mine. So,
I would love so. That'd be great.
Anyway, it was a pleasure as always, gentlemen. Thank you all so much. And,
thank you, JJ.
And lady, not
Thanks,
trying
JJ.
to eliminate anybody. And I do apologize for having to leave, but yeah, I've got to, unfortunately.
Tracie.
All right. You have a good night.
Y'all too.
Yeah, see you, JJ.
Tracie,
Bye,
can I ask
y'all.
you the simplest of questions?
Sure.
Okay, so where I do this podcast or my podcast is just right here in my little incredibly messy office.
Mm-hmm.
All you can see is the green screen behind me, so you don't have to see all the garbage and stuff.
That's funny.
But what I've got next to me, I've got holy water from my local church, my church.
Mm-hmm.
Holy water from Josh and Father Mike, Holy Salt from Josh and Father Mike,
That's cute.
and St. Benedict medal from Josh and Father Mike. And I use them.
Do you really?
I mean, you'll see if you pay attention to me, you'll see me crossing myself with the holy water. During the show, you'll see my doing the sign of the cross on my forehead. Sometimes I use the holy water on my monitor or my computer. All of us have various things we use for protection when we're doing these things. Do you have things like that, or do you
just God? Just God.
Just the prayers and the connection to God.
Just God. Yeah. Can you imagine?
Oh yeah, just
that?
God, right?
Just God. That's all.
Yeah.
Just
I hope that's enough.
Powerful being in all, the universe. But yeah, I always go in. I always ask him, what do you want me to talk about? What do you need me to say or to bring up or talk about, and make it so, make sure that I'm not saying things in a way that's going to lead people away from you, because I have to be very careful, because I'm battling some things and I don't want to bring it out where I'm causing other people to struggle then, to have the same, where you're putting your turmoils into somebody else. Thinking, oh yeah, I never thought of that. I wonder why that is. And then they start having things eating away at them. So I have to, and I talk to him. I want to do everything I can to bring people to him, not away from him. But at the same time, I'm struggling with some things, and so it's hard. So I talk to him a lot about. I have a real relationship with God. It isn't just just prayer whenever I need something. It's a real relationship. And so we talk about everything, and I do get feedback at times, and other times he sends me it's so funny. I don't know how many times he's answered me in a meme, and I just laugh. I just chuckle. I'm like, Lord, really? And I'll ask him something, and then I'll that within an hour, I'll they're just right there, and something I'll find, and I'm like, this is crazy. This is so funny that you do this, but he just has the way of always communicating to me. So it's really neat. But yeah. So I'm very careful with that.
The way you talk about your relationship with God reminds me of Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof. Do you know what I'm talking about? He's walking along with his horse, and he'll say, "Oh dear God, why did you have to choose today to make my horse lame?"
I do that with him. I mean, I kind of laugh because the one night I was talking to him, I was like, we have a real relationship here, Lord. I'm just letting you know, and I'm like, this isn't just me, coming to you when I need something, or, and I mean, I yell at him, I cry, sometimes I've screamed at him. I mean, I try not to be disrespectful, but I get so upset about certain things. I don't really blame God. It's not that I blame him. I'm trying to I guess accept his ways and accept just, things about him that I may not particularly agree with, being the lowly human that I am, and it's hard to, but then I think I kind of laugh about that, because I'm like, yeah, I'm so lowly that you died for me, we're not as lowly as we think we are, because our God loves us so much that he actually died for us. So we must be a pretty big deal to him. So it's just something that, but I just want to make sure that through my struggles and my questions and things I talk about with, or about God, that it doesn't lead somebody else into struggling. And I'm I get a little worried about that. So I talk to him about it. I just, I ask him, how do you want me to present this? How should I say this in a way that isn't going to harm somebody?
And how do you get those answers?
I just trust him to know what things come to my mind.
Okay.
That this is where he wants me to go. And I know that, I just feel that others are struggling too, in the same respect, and that, you're allowing people to see that they're struggling with things that others are struggling with too. So it's kind of like when I talked about the addiction and stuff like that, it was something that was personal. I didn't want to bring up, but I did because I did it to help others. And it's the same thing with God. So I want it to be something that's, kind of reaching out and touching people that are struggling with the same thing and not, but you can't control it. So it's just something you just have to trust, that it's going to be okay somehow, that God will work it out.
Well, the story of Jacob, who later became named later was named Israel.
It's funny you said that. I was just reading something about him today, and I just got kind of disgusted, and I walked away from it.
You walked away from it?
Yes. It was that, side of me that is so feels for everybody that is struggling, and Esau, his struggles. And I just felt like, wow, this is just so messed up that Jacob did that to him, and he's so glorified, and Jesus's line came from him. And here he was like a swindler that swindled his brother out of
his
land and his birthright. And I just felt upset about it. So I walked away from the reading about it. I was just not
the Bible
happy.
is not the story of perfect people.
No, it's not. It's not
at all. I mean,
No.
that's correct, Josh. I mean, this is not a book about non-flawed individuals.
No, it's very flawed. And I say that to God sometimes, like, God, it's such a mess. Like, how is it such a mess? Like, how do you cope with all this? Like, how do you even deal with this? How do you I know you love us, but this is it's such a, it's like, I don't even know how he can stand it half the time, but he does it. I don't know how, but jeez.
Well, I've always had the view that there's nothing wrong with struggling with God.
Mm-hmm.
Struggling with God means that you're engaged. Struggling with God means that you're trying to come to a position of peace.
Yeah.
So
You're trying to learn.
Okay. Sometimes we will say things like, well, we need to keep the rundown out of theology.
Vic,
have we ever failed tonight? Would you? I would like to. We can roll if you'd like to, but Tracie, I got a question I want to ask you.
Sure.
Is that okay, Dave? Josh?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
What'd you say, Trace?
I said, I keep telling you that, we can have an episode where we literally just talk about my ghost encounters and demonic things. And
you're welcome anytime. I mean, I think it's actually my turn to be on your show. But
the problem with me is I'm so bound to the Lord at this point. God is so much a part of my day and my life and my thoughts, and everything about my life is like, there is nothing I do, say, think, or feel that I'm not thinking about, would God approve of this right now?
Right.
Okay. And so I've gotten to be so close to him in that way that he's such a part of my life. Prayer is so, I pray all the time, all through the day. It's something, it's not a job to me anymore like it was when I was younger, where praying was like, oh, you went a whole week and you're like, oh man, I forgot to pray tonight. Well, I'll do it tomorrow. And then, it could be months that go by and you haven't read your Bible. Like it's no longer a job. It's an actual real, like, he's a part of my day, just like my son is, just like, everything about my day, God is just immersed in it. So for me to talk about anything with life and not have God in there is so unnatural to me now. It's just, I just feel so bonded to him now in that way. It's so weird because knowing that you feel like you've got some kind of a demonic thing going on in your life, and yet you're still so close to, it's such a strange feeling. It's like, how is this possible? But it is.
It's an incredibly strange feeling. Or to me, it would be very baffling.
It is. It is. But I know the enemy is at work and, doing what he can.
Okay. I want to ask you about a guest you had.
Okay.
If you don't mind. And if it's not something you want to talk about, tell me. But you had a guest that I swear is one of the most remarkable and strangest guests I've ever heard on any podcast. You had a guy who had a Bigfoot / Dogman / werewolf database.
Uh-huh.
and he would be you were taking phone calls, and somebody would call in and talk about it, and he'd say, or maybe I've got you confused, but I don't think so. He'd say, well, where do you live? Well, I live in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina. Oh, just hang on a second. He'd type on his keyboard, and then he'd come back and he'd say, oh,
Victor. It's Victor.
it's Victor. Okay.
He's a government official.
A different Victor. And he'd say, you've got...
oh, yeah, he's a different Victor. You're right. Yeah,
you've got 12 werewolves and 5 dogmen, and, man, you got 19 Bigfoot.
right.
How did you find him, and what were your thoughts when you were interviewing him?
Getting to know Victor, all the encounters he's had. His father was a hunter for the government, and he was in the service. He was in, I believe he was in the Navy, but I might be wrong about that. It might be the Marines, whatever. But he went into special ops in the service. I'm not sure which service it was anymore. And they're not the people that hunt the cryptids are always selected from the service. They're never people that are just off the street. They're always like, high up officials in like the Navy, Marines, whatever. And so his father did this, and Victor did it as well. It's his whole life. He's done it his entire life. It's all he knows. And he just has a lot of stories and a lot of information. So, and I had a friend of mine connect me to him.
I'd sure like to know how many dogmen and Bigfoot and werewolves are in York County. And
I know that, yeah, you're in an area. I know that the one guest I had on, he's a police officer in the Pocono area. He was telling me that they were having a lot of dogmen sightings up there, like recently, and they're growing, like the sightings are growing. And so I would imagine with your area, it's the same. I mean, it's pretty much around the whole. Pennsylvania is just filled with it. Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan, New York. It's like a belt of it's like a cryptid belt, really. So, and I mean, they believe there's something with portals going on, like the serpent mounds in Ohio, and there's just stuff going on in these states that there's just a lot of activity. It could be a higher content of portals. David Paulides talks about it. Pennsylvania being like the top state for missing children, especially back, I think it was in the 70s. There was a whole group of children that went missing in Pennsylvania, but he said it's really, even Robin talks about it. It's very known that Pennsylvania is really active with, cryptids and ET sightings and possibly portals and such.
What do you think these portals are?
I think they're portals. I think that's what they are.
To what? To where?
Walk into that one, Dave.
I think that the entities, the dark entities, are using them to. I think they're just doorways that they either open up themselves or, I don't know. I mean, I think the government, which I believe is run by Lucifer, I think he's at the top of all that. I believe that, they either know how to open up portals. I believe that they're using humans as food. We are a food source to them. And I also believe that they could possibly be doing something with souls. I don't know how that's possible with God. But I think that, these people that they're finding, these missing cases with like missing 411, where there's a lot of men that end up in water that are missing and they're dead and there's no cause of death. Why are they dead? Why are they in water? Well, the water would cover them up, cover up the crime, any kind of evidence. Is it a portal? Do they need water to open up the portals? There's questions there that you have to ask yourself. And the men, I can't remember who had said this, but the souls of men are stronger than the souls of women in that world, in that realm. And so they're more attracted to, like, if they were to take a soul, it would be a man that they would choose over a woman.
Man is more valuable to them or more?
Yeah. The soul
they can use it
it's
better or
stronger.
something?
It's stronger. It's a stronger soul. It's there's something with the soul, like the force, the life force to the soul is stronger than a woman's. And with children, it's the innocence of the children. Like that's something with them. So the women are just, they just would prefer the man's soul. Maybe it has something to do with being God's, like his sons. I don't know. I mean, these are all just kind of theories that you gather, but there's
Right, a whole Adam versus Eve type thing.
yeah, yeah.
Huh.
And so these portals are opening up, and I just believe that they're gateways that these entities are using to. I really truly believe that basically most of it is just we're a food source to them. I believe that they're eating people, or maybe they eat souls. I know they eat energy. I mean, that's a well-known fact that these demons and the entities that are dark, that they feed off of negative energy. So, but I think that there's more to that. I mean, even the cryptids, I believe they're using the portals to take children and people, and they're eating them. And for a while there with the Bigfoot, I initially had thought that they could have potentially been a branch of the Nephilim. And then I got away from that feeling, learning about the Dogmen and the Bigfoot more. I got away from feeling like that. And lately, I'm starting to just know that they're a branch of the Nephilim. That when God talked about in the end days that the Nephilim would return upon the earth, I believe they're a branch of the Nephilim. And then it's just a feeling that I'm feeling more and more and more, that they're eating people. They're stealing. They're doing the same shit that the Nephilim were doing. And so it's just something I just feel like I definitely believe that they were created by the Watchers, and the dark entities that were doing the the experiments, blending humans with other creatures or whatever. I do believe that that's possibly, potentially, probably where they came from. But and then there was that case where that old woman that had the Bigfoot that lived on her land, and she lived amongst them. Like, she gardened with them, and she protected them, and they helped her and she helped them. And the guy had gone to visit her, and he said, where are they from, or where are you from? When he looked at them, and they point up to the sky and they say, the star people. That's what she said. But they point to the sky, and they said the star people. And when they did the studies of their DNA, the father was completely unknown to anything on this planet, but the mother they believed was an Indian woman. So it's, I mean, you put two and two together with all this, it's logical to me. And it's really not that. I mean, we live in a supernatural realm. That's what we are. We're spiritual beings. We're supernatural ourselves. We just don't know what we're capable of because it was taken from us. That knowledge was robbed from us. And I mean, like I said, we're pretty important to God. So we're part of God. We're part of him. We have his DNA in us.
So have you read the Book of Enoch?
I've read a lot of the Book of Enoch, yeah.
You have. Is that where it says that the Nephilim will return in the end days?
Yeah, I do believe that. Yeah, I do believe that it's from Enoch. Yeah.
Because I couldn't think of any scripture that had it, but I haven't read the full Book of Enoch yet.
It's a good book. It's what I think I've read all of it. I thought maybe there were some things I missed because I wasn't paying attention during certain points of the book, and I was meant to go back to it, but I did read. I think is basically all of it. But and I would love to meet Enoch. That's the one person I think, outside of Jesus, that I would just love to. I mean, imagine being a human being that just was, you're walking with God every day, and he just says,
right,
"Do you want to come in?" And he opens up the doorway to.
Just opens the door. Yeah, hey, come on inside.
You're that beloved by God. That's how close he was to God. That it's just an amazing relationship.
It's a good guy to have as a friend.
Yeah.
So with the cryptids, then your thought is we're dealing with Nephilim or some variation of that.
I do feel it. I was trying to get away from that feeling when I initially felt it, and then I stopped feeling. I thought, no, they're probably creations of the Watchers. And then lately I've just been feeling like God has been like putting this sense in the middle of my core, because I have this thing where I feel things. It's more like I either get downloads from God, I hear his voice, or I feel something like in the center of my core. And I'm just like, and that's something, it's like a knowing that no, these are part of the Nephilim. This is part of what God was talking about. They're huge, they're enormous, they've got, supernatural abilities, they're consuming human beings. Victor was one of the people that talked about the people that he found in the cave. They were hunting a Bigfoot that had been giving people crap, and they went in, they found the cave, and there were all kinds of bones of children in this cave.
Well, I know I've seen pictures of caves with like stacks of backpacks found way back, where hikers go missing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What was Victor's thought on that? Did he believe that they were Nephilim?
I don't know if Victor thinks if they're. I don't know if he actually connects it to God.
I didn't get that feeling from listening to him. He was.
Yeah.
It was just like listening to a hunter talking about animals.
It's exactly what he is. He's a hunter. I mean, he works with dogmen. The military trains the dogmen to go in and take over, these other countries. Like when there's something going on, like that one recovery they did with the high up official from the United States. They went in, and these dogmen went in. I think they took 8 of them on an airplane. And there have been sightings in the Grand Canyon of Jeeps driving around with dog soldiers dressed in uniform with men, with a guy driving and dog soldiers in the back. People have reported sightings of them. I mean, this stuff is just like, what the hell are we living in? This is just like, holy crap. I mean, it's too much. It's too much for us to process. But
okay, the rundown list has just gone to 2,622 because I didn't have military dogmen in there. Bad Victor.
There's military dogmen.
You got to call them dog soldiers. There's a movie, Vic.
There's a movie called Dog Soldiers.
Horror movies. There's a movie about werewolves called Dog Soldiers.
Dog Soldiers, yeah. And everything in our movies, surprisingly, always seems to become reality.
It is. It's a good movie.
Tracie,
I think it's a good movie.
I'm pretty certain that you've got very good perceptive abilities in terms of telling when someone's lying to you.
Mm-hmm. Who, me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I seem to.
Yeah. Did you get anything like that from Victor? Did he seem to be just dealing with you straight up and honestly?
I think Victor is straight up.
Okay.
I think Victor is straight up. The details, he can tell you the same story a million times over, not literally, but he does not, he rattles things up. It's the way people present it. It's the way they tell you the details, and there's just something in people's, you can tell by the way they're talking that this is just a memory. This is something that really happened.
Just something they're talking about.
Oh yeah. There's no way Victor's making this up. There's no way. I mean, it sounds like he, to people that didn't believe in this stuff, that didn't believe in dogmen, didn't believe in Sasquatch, didn't believe in ETs, didn't believe in demons, that they would think, oh my God, this guy's crazy, but when you do believe in basically what God has told us is real, then you start to understand that, it's out there and they know about it, and they're either in cahoots with them or they're hunting them, or maybe a little bit of both. So, which I believe it's a little bit of both. And so Victor is, he said about the guy that there is an actual recording of, I believe it was Syria. I think it was Syria or Afghanistan, where the leader of the country came on and said he requested to the United Nations that the United States stop using creatures of nightmare in their military tactics.
Mm-hmm.
And so this guy went in and he recovered this important official, and these dogmen had 300 men. They were gone within moments. Within 15 minutes, they were all dead. And this is how dangerous.
A creature of nightmare.
Yeah, creatures of nightmare.
I think you need to have Victor on your show there, Vic.
Well, I don't know how to get in touch with Victor.
I mean, I can ask him. I can try to get in touch with them.
If
can
you
put a
would,
request
Tracie,
in.
I would find that
That is an awesome Trailer Trash Terrors.
that is a
guest.
Trailer Trash Terrors
Yep.
episode.
Absolutely.
That's so funny. That is so funny.
What the name of my show?
No, just having Vic wanted associating him with, and two Vics.
Oh,
You got
yeah.
Vic and Vic,
Yeah.
and you got these trailers. It's comical, but just like the LBL incident where they saw that the guy that was the family that was torn apart. Vic was there for that. So
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
you don't know the LBL incident where the family was torn to pieces?
I don't.
Oh, Vic, what am I going to do with you?
Castigate me, punish me. I don't know.
Mother, daughter, father, son, and a child that was with them that came along, that was a friend. They went out camping to the LBL, and they were setting up camp, and their camper was raided by dogmen. And this boy hid under this bunk or whatever he could hide under. And these creatures came in and tore this family apart, tore them to shreds. The little boy, he wasn't that little. He was a teenager, I believe. He waited for hours, and he finally, things were quiet. He got away. He ran like hell. So he was witness to it. And Vic went in with a team of people. He was there with a lot of people. And he said they found the little girl up in a tree, just half devoured.
Mangled.
She was strung up in a tree, her innards and everything, just all over the place. And the family was just decimated.
What's the LBL?
That is the land between the lakes.
This is in Kentucky, right?
No, I think I actually.
Or is this Michigan?
It's Michigan, yeah.
Michigan.
And so there's parts that's very notorious for not going into ever to camp. Like you're taking your life in your hands to go to this place, and there's a lot of dogmen sightings here. I mean, by people that go in just that don't believe in dogmen, that need to verify it for themselves. They see them. They're there. And
I
the
don't
government
really need to see a dogman that much. I wouldn't mind seeing a Bigfoot. I have no interest in seeing a dogman.
Dogmen would be absolutely horrifying, just horrifying. They believe that they're that they're there to protect the Nephilim, and isn't that funny? The Bigfoot's in the woods with them, but they're also giants that they've seen, 30-foot giants coming over the lines from Canada. People have seen holding clubs like they're some kind of an ogre, and walking across the Canadian border into the United States. Where
there is
what they're
a
after.
lot of untouched Canadian border with the United States, so I could see that.
They're hiding in the wilderness. There's so much out there even if they go underground, like even Satan, when he came to God, remember the day he was in line, and the Lord asked him, from whence have you came? And he said, he was in and on, and he was on, around, and inside of the earth. And they talk Admiral Byrd. I mean, what he talked about, this is an admiral in the United States Navy, is coming in saying that, there's a whole land underneath the surface of the earth. Nordic people, there's dinosaurs, there's trees, there's everything you could imagine is there. It's a whole world. So it's, you look at Antarctica, why can't anybody go there? This treaty that they think that's so heavily guarded by, the military in certain spots. Why? Why is it guarded? Why is the Grand Canyon guarded by military? I mean, it's crazy. It's like, and we were told. I mean, we were told about most of it. It's biblical. The end times, the giants will return upon the earth, up on the earth. Where are they coming from? Well, it sounds to me like they're coming from in the earth, and they're coming back.
Tracie, have you ever talked to a guy named Abe Sias?
I haven't. Is that a joke?
No.
No, but I think that would be a great conversation too. You should interview him.
Well,
Abe Sias.
Abe Sias. Abe, A-B-E, as in Abe, Sias, S-I-A-S. He's a fellow in Texas, former soldier. And he has daily interactions with what he calls disembodied demonic Nephilim. And he's a fascinating person to talk to. I mean, he really is. When you talk to
disembodied
demonic
Nephilim. Okay.
DDNs. That's what he calls them.
Yeah, DDNs, disembodied demonic Nephilim.
Now, where did he get that name from? The description of them.
I think he made that name up, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think that's his. He coined that phrase for him.
Yeah, I think so.
And they're all Dogmen and Bigfoot, right? In their
I mean,
appearance.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
And I think more Dogmen than Bigfoot, but I think both. I'm trying to remember the one that he had that video that he was on that show with was Dogman like in the way he described it.
Yeah.
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 That's so weird. You guys just validated my feeling of it. That's crazy.
Look, I try, honestly, I do. I try to not spend a lot of time thinking about my Australia experience. I don't like having it in my brain. I don't like thinking about this.
Right. Well,
But
did he tell you his Australia experience?
I'm waiting. I'm kind of saying, should I ask you what it was and have
Lord.
you tell me? Or
Can I do the abbreviated version?
yeah.
Okay.
If you go to the last episode of season 1,
You get the
episode
full version.
20, I think it is, you get the full 45-minute long version of it. But give the short.
Let me give you the short one. Rough point in my life. I had been in Australia doing work for the Australian government, doing simulation. I finally finished the work and had some vacation, so decided to stay down there for several weeks. Rented a car, a Mitsubishi Pajero, and drove all over the place. Came out of the desert. I was so tired of being in the desert because it was just so dang hot. 115 degrees every day, and then cold at night. So I got down to New South Wales, Victoria, that area, and what I like to do is go hiking. I'm a hiker.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I've hiked, much of the Appalachian Trail, the entire Long Trail, parts of the Pacific Crest Trail, Chillicoot Trail. I didn't make it to the top of the Chillicoot Trail. But so I went to talk to the park rangers down there and said, can you point me to where I can get away from people as much as possible? And they did. So I drove my Pajero out there, got myself packed up. Plan was I had about 4 days of food. And if I could find water, I could stay out there easily 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
I had a filter. I had ways of making my water clean. So the first day I had a really, really nice hike. And sure enough, I'm able to find water. And so I'm in like Flint, man. My goal was to just be away from the world. Think, meditate, get myself healthy again. The next day, I start off on this hike again, run into, at about midday, I come around a corner and I run into, this was a 2 cryptid day, I run into what I can only describe as a thylacine, a Tasmanian tiger, a Tasmanian wolf. That's what it was. And there was nothing at all frightening about this. It was just an animal about the size of a big dog with a really long tail and stripes and a huge mouth. That did not want to harm me at all. It really wanted to get away. We looked at each other for maybe 5 seconds. Then it bounded off into the woods or into the bush, and I could hear that there were others back there. They were kind of part of a family group. I had been across all of Australia with my camera ready to go. That day, it was in its little waterproof pouch. So I finally resume hiking again. Get to, it must have been, I'm thinking 4:35 in the evening because the sun was kind of starting to come down low. It was the sun was low enough to where it was casting some interesting shadows. And I began thinking, oh, this is the time of day where it'd be fun to take pictures. You're getting a better photo because of where the sun is. Things change. I mean, I'm leaving a lot out here because I don't really want to go, into the 45-minute story. Things change. I start to realize that there's a smell that's coming and going. Sort of a death, rotten sewage, raw, rotten eggs, wet dog kind of smell, like everybody else describes. I mean, I've heard this smell described over and over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing about it was that it wasn't like look, if you put a pile of something putrid across the room, the smell is heavier the smell is stronger as you get close to it.
Mm-hmm.
This smell it was just like somebody could turn the switch on and off. Smell, don't smell. Smell, don't smell. And which makes me think that the smell was not something that was physical. There was also a feeling of absolute despair. And some of being frightened, but it was mostly despair. I finally come to a clearing, and about 15 feet away from me, I'm aware that something is standing next to the trees over there. Something about 9 feet tall, with massive hands, with claws.
Oh, jeez.
Wow. And it's not a paddy kind of creature. It's much more muscular than a paddy kind of creature. But the thing is, Tracie, it was like watching an octopus. You know how an octopus can glide up to a rock and then just kind of disappear into the rock?
Yeah.
Changing the chromatophores on its body?
It's called cloaking.
Yeah, but there wasn't anything woo about it. This was just like I could tell, look, this is just a wonderfully evolved capability.
Right.
That this thing can do. So it could easily have camouflaged itself to the point where nobody would have seen it and you could just walk right past it. But over time, it started to reveal itself. Best I can tell you, 9 feet tall.
Wow.
Sporadic hair, a lot of hair on top of the head. Something more like a snout than a paddy type face. Here I am peeing in my pants, trying not to do anything else in my pants.
Yeah.
Totally. Well, it wasn't even being frightened anymore. It was just a matter of, oh, well, either I'm going to die or I'm not going to die. Because it could easily have just, killing me would have been nothing.
Oh, yeah.
What's that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, killing me would have been nothing for this thing. I kind of made a mistake. I kind of moved my hand toward my camera, and that's the only sound I heard. When I moved my hand toward the camera, there was this...
Yeah, the growl.
Yeah. It wasn't a growl, it was the...
They think that's infrasound that they start to put out.
Do you remember lurch?
Yeah.
Remember when something irritated you, go...
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So look, that was... I finally got the idea that I wasn't supposed to go past that point. I think there probably was a family back beyond that point. And they didn't want me to leave. And so the most frightening time in this entire episode was when I was turning around. Okay, when I was now I've got to put my back to this thing.
Oh, I bet.
And so there was no way I was going to get back to the trailhead in one hiking trip. I had to stop sometime to sleep. Horrible sleep.
Oh, you're kidding me.
I wonder why.
So you're stuck out there with this stuff. Oh, gosh. Oh, no.
I can't tell you exactly. There are two things about this story that I find very unsatisfying. One is I can't tell you exactly how many miles I was out there. I was a good hiker. I could hike 28 miles in a day if I wanted to.
Wow.
At that point. I wasn't going that fast, so I'm thinking first day I probably covered 20 miles, and I'm thinking the second day I probably covered maybe 15.
Jeez, Vic.
What's that?
It's just crazy that you covered that much.
Oh, yeah.
That you're that far out with this thing.
I was
that's crazy.
A really, really good hiker at the time. And I got back, and then I went to talk to the police, and they were very unpleasant to me. And then
Oh, no.
It does make you wonder. So, if you have dogmen that are being run by the government, right, as some sort of enhancement to our special forces, what do they do in their off time? Right?
Yeah.
They
Play
hang
fetch.
out in the, hang out somewhere in the Australian outback and have families and make more dogmen, or,
Just
or
so
are
we need
they
more dogmen.
Well, I mean, what I was trying to get to with this story, first off, Tracie, do you find anything unique or entirely bizarre about that story? I mean, this was not an American petty type Bigfoot.
No, I don't. I feel there's many of the encounters. There's different areas of the world that they have different looks to them.
Yeah.
So they do. They just like the Bigfoot do. Some of the Bigfoot. I mean, they're just like people in a sense. If they've got human DNA in them, and different looking fathers. And I mean, there was one encounter. The woman said she had been canoeing, and she was coming upon this beach area that had a lot of rocks and stuff, and these little beings were playing in the water, and the most beautiful looking man she had ever seen was sitting along this creek watching his kids play. The kids ran into the woods, and she realized when she came upon him that he was covered in hair, and she thought he had some kind of a disease. And it wasn't till years later that she realized this was a Bigfoot. And the government had called her on her caller ID. It showed up that this was a government agency that was calling her to try and the guy said, I want to talk to you about the Bigfoot sighting you had. And she said, I didn't see a Bigfoot. I saw a man that had a disease. And he goes, and he kind of sighed, and he was like, I want to talk to you about the Bigfoot sighting you had. And she was like, she hung the phone up on him because she said she had a hard time processing that this was a Bigfoot.
This was
but he was beautiful.
Yeah, this was the Brad Pitt of Bigfoots.
Yeah, he was just gorgeous, and he had, he was like, following her back. He was, in the woods, and she was in the creek, and she was paddling back.
I've never heard that story before.
Yeah. And he was beautiful. And, we've never heard of Bigfoot being beautiful. They always look like they've got Down syndrome or something that's wrong with them, that doesn't look quite right.
Right.
That's what a lot of people report, that they have almost like a Down syndrome look to them, not to knock Down syndrome, but he just said that, people just talk about that. That's kind of what they have, that look to them. So, but it's, they all have different, some of them have different coats, like the colors of their hair, just different looks to them.
Well, I had always just wanted to think of this as look, man, you ran into a creature that lives in Australia that is so secretive that hardly anybody ever sees it. I would still prefer that to be the case.
Yeah, well, sounds to me like you had a Dogman sighting.
Well, and then I wonder if there's any kind of demonic aspect to that or not. And
I believe that they are demons. I believe that. I feel it in my soul that it's they have the demonic element. Their fathers were, watchers, and they were angels, and they were mixed with human women and possibly, like a wolf or
other things, yeah.
who knows?
Well,
something else. I mean, Robin and I we disagree on that a little bit, because she says that the Bigfoot, the DNA shows just, father unknown, mother was, most likely a female, like a tribal, an Indian. And
right.
and so, but I'm like, but where did all the hair come from? Like where does all this hair come from? And she's like, well, you think about, some of the tales of us coming from, Cro-Magnon man and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, but I don't really believe that either. Because why are there still, I mean, it's never made sense why there's still, apes running around, and yet somehow this branch evolved into, I mean, get real, so I don't know. It just seems like they might have been mixed with something else too, but I don't know.
This thing had, you could see intelligence in the eyes.
Yeah. I mean, they're intelligent, all right.
It wasn't just a matter of animal type intelligence. It was something closer to human level intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah. Or angel,
which is a common feeling with Bigfoot as well.
Yeah. I just remember it's pretty hot in Australia, and I was really, really happy where I could get some place where I could change my pants.
I bet. Oh, that's just unreal.
And I couldn't hike all night long because I didn't have any light. I had a little flashlight that fit on top of my head, but it wasn't an LED. It was a regular flashlight, and the batteries were dying. So I had to find a place to. Mm-hmm. So I slept on the ground, which is a bad idea in Australia. Next to a tree, and spent a long time kind of brushing things out of the way, but lots and lots of things crawling around in Australia that will bite you.
Oh, that's so
and scary.
Kill you. And then you want to know one of the more frightening aspects of that entire night was that every night the male koala bears will come down out of the trees.
Yeah.
And they don't fight, but they pretend to fight. So they kind of circle each other, and they make this sound like. Oh
no!
That sounds hilarious.
He must have been terrified.
And so
this is awful. What a terrible story.
But you're just expecting that, this 9-foot thing could come and. If it wanted, like I say, when I see, one of the things that I have learned from this is people will post pictures of a Bigfoot or something like a Bigfoot online, like they've taken it from 3 feet away. No.
Yeah, I know.
You're not. You might get a picture from across the valley. You might get a picture down the road. You might get a picture from a trail cam, but you're not going to get a picture of one of these creatures from 3 feet away.
No. You'd have to be pretty good friends with them, I'd say.
Right. It's not going to let you. So.
Yeah. They don't like cameras at all. That's.
No.
The Indian legend is, I don't know if you know this, but the Indian legend is that every time you take a picture, you're taking a part of your soul.
So all these people who take selfies all day long.
Yeah.
That explains why they're soulless.
It explains why they're soulless.
Think about the agenda of that, how Lucifer works all this. And if there is any truth to that.
Right.
How he's got everybody so vain, like we're in this age of vanity.
The age of vanity means at least the easier rise of Lucifer.
Oh, and think about if there is any truth in the Indian legend that a little piece of your soul gets stolen away from you every time you take a picture. I mean, my word. It's it's left and right. So that could be. I always wonder if that's why they don't like that. Why that's something that's really taboo in their world, other than just not wanting to be discovered. But I mean, nowadays with Photoshop and everything, even if you take a real picture of a Bigfoot, people don't believe you anyway.
People don't believe you.
No.
Okay, well,
you had a dead one. You could bring one back that was dead, and people would think that you've made it up.
Oh, I think that'd be pretty convincing if you could get a.
Well, yeah, if you could get everybody.
You could get it back.
The only people that would believe you are the people that actually physically saw it. That was what I'm saying. That to get that word out into the newspapers and everything else, people no, they're just making that up. It's a hoax.
Tracie, this happened to me in 2003 or 2004, and I didn't talk about it till last year.
Wow.
It was just nope. No need to talk about that. It is 12:56 a.m. Eastern Time. I think we should try to bring this to a close. Okay. Tracie, I hope you feel like you've been treated well and respectfully on the rundown.
I do.
And as far as I'm concerned, you have an open invitation to come back anytime you want.
Oh, Vic, there's so much to talk about. It is just an endless cauldron.
No kidding.
So,
Tracie, where should people find you at? What's the best way?
Well, my podcast is In the Dark, All Things Supernatural, or you can just type in my name, put In the Dark in with Tracie Bush. It's probably the easiest way to find me. And you can email me from there, but I do have an email address, inthedark2021@gmail.com. You can also email me there.
Perfect.
Yeah. And it's just the podcast is Vic kind of we've said this before, how funny it was that the name of my podcast was so common. But at some point I might change it to something a little bit different. Who knows?
And I would very much encourage people to listen to Tracie's podcast. It's not like anyone else's. I'm finding that I have an affinity for podcasts that have a lot of realism in them, a lot of raw humanity in them. That's one of the reasons I really like Tracie's podcast. That's one of the reasons I like Chris James's podcast. All righty, Tracie. Thank you again. I'm going to say goodnight to everybody and end the show.
You too, you guys.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right,
see
bye-bye.
You guys.
See ya.
We hope you enjoyed Season 2, Episode 3 of the Paranormal Rundown. I know that we did. And Tracie sure was a wonderful guest. You should definitely check out her podcast, In the Dark, All Things Supernatural, with Tracie Bush. In fact, Tracie did something that no other guest has done so far. Here's a little dungeon talk to show you exactly what I'm talking about.
All right. So before we go official, let me just make sure that everybody knows everything. Tracie has done something that no other guest on the rundown has done, and that is she has gone through the rundown list. Which is
No, I've gone through half of the rundown list, Vic. Maybe not even half of it.
well that is way more than anybody else.
That's way more than anyone else has done. But
my gosh,
I mean, so you've looked at the list and you've realized that, look, this is the product either of a brilliant or a demented mind, and I'll let you determine what that.
I thought both thoughts at some point. Like, wow, these are really good ideas. And as he lost his mind, like, how much time has he spent putting this together?
Hundreds of hours.
No idea.
Easily hundreds of hours.
Mm-hmm.
And
the worst thing about it, Vic, not to interrupt you, but the worst thing about it was I had other ideas to give you.
Oh, that's
good.
And
I thought, just keep your mouth shut.
No. I always ask people to add to it. Tell me what they would like to see. And I did add the ideas that you've had.
Okay. Now, Vic, did you share the list I sent you with them? Did you?
No, I didn't. I didn't send all those extra topics. She chose some of our topics that she really liked. And she sent me 5 or 6 additional topics.
There were topics that weren't in the list? That's
Probably.
awesome.
If I would have read the whole list, I would know that, but I can't say. I just said, Vic, these are. I got to the point where he was like, why don't you, because I sent him numbers because I was being lazy. And so I didn't write out the topics. I just sent him the numbers. Vic's like, well, wait a minute here. I don't know if these are if these are going to line up with the right.
Right.
The right topic. So I kind of chuckled. I thought, do you want me to write out the list? And he's like, no, I'll figure it out. And then he said, send me something else. And I was like, well, just pick whatever. I said, I can talk about anything almost with this. I mean, this is just, the whole list, everything that I was seeing, I could talk about. So that's how.
Well, by the time she sent me the numbers, there had been new numbers added.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay. I get it.
So, all right, just so you know, the list tonight is at 2,621.
Well, you're really having a hard time pushing 2,700, Vic. You need to get to work.
I cannot believe this. Oh, no. That's hysterical.
But Tracie,
That's
have you ever
great.
run into anything like this in the podcast world? Has anybody ever put together something as weird as this?
No, it's great. I mean, it's wonderful. It's just your thoughts that come up that you write them down and think, okay, let's, or whatever, maybe things you hear about or you read about. But it's really neat. I think it's pretty fascinating. It's pretty cool.
Speaking of Dungeon Talk, here is a little story that shows how endearing Vic is to little children.
I will throw a humorous moment in here. I was in a grocery store the other day and had a cart. I was going around looking for chips and spaghetti sauce, just groceries. And relatively narrow aisles. And I'm kind of trying to figure out exactly which way to go to get past several carts in front of me. And there's this little girl sitting in the cart, must have been about 3. And she looks at me straight in the eye and she says, "Choose a lane, asshat."
A Supernatural fan, no doubt.
Well, her mother was a Supernatural fan, I'm pretty sure.
Sure, yes.
And I chuckled, and the mother's looking like, oh.
Oh, no.
So I'm pretty sure I know where the little girl learned that particular statement.
Thank you again for listening to the Paranormal Rundown. We would absolutely love it if you would like, subscribe, or even better, just tell your friends about the show. If you have any questions, would like to provide feedback, or just want to get an update on how Cedric is feeling, please email us at feedback@paranormalrundown.com. The Paranormal Rundown is a joint production of David Griffith, J.J. Johnson, Father Michael Birdsong, and Vic Hermanson. Any music you heard during the show came from Lobo Loco, Smart Sound, or was in the public domain. That will do it for now. We will be back in a couple of weeks for a new and mind-tingling, soul-searching, rabbit-hole-wandering episode of the Paranormal Rundown. See you then.